in a house where everything looked polished and quiet. A little boy's cry didn't sound like a cry at all. It was more like a bray of the small, shaky thing that made his shoulders tremble and his eyes shimmer with fear. 6-year-old Ethan Hartley, born deaf, sat on the edge of a velvet stair, clutching his blue stuffed whale so tightly the button pressed into his palm. The Hartley estate was a place of fountains, mirrors, and people who said yes, sir, to his father. Roberta, busy millionaire who filled every room with fresh flowers and lights bright enough to expose dust that didn't exist. His new wife Vanessa clicked through the halls on heels that sounded like a metronome, smiling that sharp, thin smile, always watching but never really seeing. Nobody looked at Ethan long enough to notice his trembling hands or bothered to learn how he spoke. No one knelt to meet his eyes or waited to see what his hands might be saying. On a rainy afternoon, when thunder rolled and shook Ethan's chest like a drum, an 8-year-old girl named Zoe Cruz stepped into the mansion for the first time. Her mother, Helen, had just taken a job as the new housekeeper, and Zoe's backpack had a frayed strap and a sun-shaped patch. She liked puzzles, quiet animals, and had learned enough sign language at school to say hello and tell silly jokes with her hands. She saw Ethan there, hunched over and clutching his whale, and instead of looking away, she knelt, putting her eyes level with his. She signed slowly, "Hi, I'm Zoe." Ethan's crying turned to shaky, fast breaths, his hands fluttering like scared birds. He signed one word, tiny but heavy, "Help." But before Zoe could say more, Vanessa's voice sliced the air, cold and crisp. "Zoe, stay close." She smiled down at Ethan, touched his head like he was a lamp. Not a boy. Ethan flinched. Vanessa's eyes flashed at Zoe, then went soft, like nothing had happened. The moment vanished. And that's where everything started. A boy who wasn't heard, a girl who spoke with her hands, and a house determined to pretend nothing was wrong. Earlier that day, Helen had learned the rules: kitchen spotless, floors shining, staff silent unless spoken to, and Ethan never allowed to run or make a mess. Ethan must sit in lessons with a private tutor who never bothered to learn a single sign. When Vanessa said, "We try to teach him to behave, but he doesn't listen," something inside Helen flared up. Ethan didn't listen because he couldn't hear a problem you don't fix with rules, but with patience and eyes willing to see. While Helen worked, Zoe sat on a pantry stool practicing silent words. "Friend," "Safe," "How can I help?" When she caught Ethan watching her, she smiled softly and signed again. "Hi, I'm Zoe. Are you okay?" Ethan glanced over his shoulder, like he expected the walls to answer. He signed slowly, stiffly. "I am not safe when she shuts the curtains." He pointed to the windows with heavy drapes. He signed. "She says I'm bad when I cry." Zoe's stomach dropped. She signed. "Who is she?" But Ethan turned away, pressing the whale to his cheek. Zoe wanted to run to her mom, but remembered Vanessa's warning glance. She kept her breath steady and signed. "You're not bad. You are brave." Ethan's gaze flicked up. He signed. "No one learns how to talk to me here." Then his hands moved faster. Night. Dark. Hurt without touching. Hands hovering like he was afraid to bruise himself. He signed. Quiet. But his face said scared. When he finished, his hands dropped like wet towels. Zoe let her face go calm, her shoulders relax, and signed. "Thank you for telling me. I believe you. I will help." Ethan's mouth opened a little, like he'd forgotten how. His tears were softer now, like rain. Zoe found a small whiteboard. Wrote, "I can sign. I will tell my mom. You are safe with me," and held it up. Ethan stepped closer, touched the board. He didn't smile, but his shoulders dropped a little. When Vanessa called for Ethan's lesson, the tutor arrived. Neat hair, neat tie, neat book. He tapped a card that read apple, but Ethan just stared, thinking how apple was more than a word. It was a sign at the cheek in his language eating without crunch. Ethan tried to sign it, but the tutor just tapped the card again. Vanessa watched, arms crossed, mouth tight. The lesson crawled like a car stuck in mud. When it ended, Ethan left fast, face blank, passing a mirror. He lifted his hands and signed. You are not broken. Hold on. Zoe waited until the tutor left. She met her mom's eyes. Sign, mother. Later. Later came sooner than expected. In the kitchen, a crash echoed softer, sadder than broken plates. Zoe ran. Ethan was on the floor by the curtains, wail out of reach, fabric half torn from the rings. He tried to open them to see the rain. Vanessa stood above, face white with anger, hands still raised. Look what you've done, she said. Ethan curled up. Zoe signed big. Not your fault. And stood between him and Vanessa, a small guard. He wanted to see the storm. Zoe said, voice shaking. He needs someone to sign to him. The room froze. Helen appeared at Zoe's back. Steady. Mrs. Hartley, she said. My daughter knows sign language. Ethan can tell us what he needs. Vanessa's smile came back. Brittle. That's cute. But he needs discipline, not hand games. Ethan clapped his palms over his ears. Watch Vanessa's mouth form trouble shapes. His hands reached for Zoe. Please don't leave. She signed. I won't. Robert Hartley chose that moment to come home tall, tired, on the phone, but not as important as the scene before him. Torn curtain. Boy on the floor. Girl signing. Wife's glassy smile. What happened? Vanessa. He had another tantrum. Robert looked at Ethan, then Zoe, then Helen. Ethan, buddy, you gotta behave. Ethan saw his mouth move, caught Ethan. Behave, but not love or I see you. Zoe signed. He is crying because he is not safe. Robert blinked. What is she doing? Vanessa laughed. She thinks the boy is going to tell us a story with his hands. Helen spoke. Sir, your son is deaf. He needs us to learn how he speaks. Robert finally dropped to Ethan's level. Son, are you okay? The words drifted, bubbles that popped before reaching Ethan. He looked at Zoe, trusted hands more than mouths. Zoe signed. Do you want to tell your dad? Ethan, yes. But I am scared. You are brave. I am here. Has someone been unkind? Ethan signed. Curtains mean I cannot see anybody see me. She says I'm a problem. She squeezes my arm. She says Dad will hate me if I cry. Zoe signed for Helen, who voiced the words. Robert's face broke, then hardened, then broke again. Vanessa, no, no. He's confused. He's making things up. She reached for Ethan's wrist. He jerked back. Zoe's hand shot up, don't. Robert stood slow, heavy. Then, Vanessa, we'll sort this out. Helen, can you help him feel safe for a minute? Helen nodded. Zoe reached for Ethan. He put his small fingers in hers, two puzzle pieces meant to fit. They sat on the floor, wailed between them. Ethan signed. Thank you. Zoe, always. Robert watched, shame burning. For the first time, he wondered what kind of home he'd built if his child had to ask a stranger for safety. Vanessa's eyes sharpened, but Zoe ignored her, focused on Ethan. Later that night, as the rain hammered the windows, Detective Harris arrived at the door. Someone had reported concerns about Ethan. Panic flickered in Vanessa's eyes, but Robert let the detective inside. Harris knelt to Ethan's level. Ask questions. Zoe translated as Ethan signed. She scares me. Not safe when the curtains close. She says I'm bad. As the truth tumbled out, Vanessa tried to protest, but the detective stood firm. Helen shielded Zoe. Robert finally chose, blocking Vanessa. If protecting my son means choosing, then yes, I choose him. Vanessa was led away in cuffs, her cold laughter echoing down the marble halls. Secrets don't stay buried forever, she called. But Robert, Ethan, Zoe, and Helen clung together, light seeping into the mansion's long shadows. And in that fragile dawn, as Ethan pressed his wail to his chest and Zoe sat by his side, the first sign for hope began to grow a small, stubborn light, because someone had finally listened. And for Ethan, that changed everything.